is, excuse me, I thought I saw this on my phone. Is ordinance 2216 parks regulations. Do I have a second?
Second.
And second by Councilman Graybon. The motion was made by Councilman McMillan for 2216 parks. Any questions? No further questions. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda this evening was, it's on the revised agenda, ordinance 2217, a special event for the Mitchell County Regional Medical Foundation. And I think this location is the former Zimmer Auction Palace. It's been moved by Councilman Audi that we approve ordinance 2217, special event permit. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman McMillan. Any further discussion? No further discussion. Those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda this evening is resolution 2017-10, Bobcat financing. Again, we had discussed this in the last work session. The motion was made by Councilman Miller. Do I have a second? Second by Councilman Ponto. Any discussion?
The power
Notice.
Bobcat, correct?
Yes. Okay. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is appointment of Gary Allen for the tree board. Entertain a motion for that. It's been moved by Councilman Miller that we appoint Gary Allen for the tree board. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Graybon. Any further discussion? No further discussion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is an expenditure for the JCI to fix the wastewater process pump elbows and bases for the amount of $17,413.
Did have one question. Are we gonna see anything else in sort of associated with this that's probably gonna be coming up in the next few years? Do we anticipate it, or is this probably the last main repair? on
As
this
far as this end of it, the pumps have been rebuilt and replaced. This takes care of the leakage part of it, and any study confirming the nutrient removal and stuff would be totally separate, wouldn't involve these pumps.
Okay.
It's been moved by Councilman Ponto that we approve the wastewater process pump repair.
Second.
Second by Councilman Graybon. Any further discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Been moved by Councilman McMillan that we adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Ponto. Any discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. We are now adjourned. Next is the work session agenda. Katie, do you have anything at this time?
Sure don't, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jason, do you have anything at this time? Okay. Water plant discussion. It's the next item. We're there.
Okay.
Record time.
Yes.
Everything was moving right along now.
Now we're trying to make it slow down. So this is kind of a recap. Andrew and I went and kind of sat with the other water districts to learn from Gary Hansen a little bit more about the regionalization process and really about the concept of the public water wholesale district and also kind of another way you can do it with an interlocal or intergovernment agreement. But the wholesale district is probably the route that we would most typically go. That's usually the way they're handled. And really, it's just a way of creating an entity with board members, et cetera, that we've talked about. And kind of the first thing that Andrew and I laid out, the priorities, and the soft water was a big issue for us, and the best technology available, and the plan's expandable. So we kind of laid our cards out there. And while there was definitely some back and forth, some discussion over it, it really kind of the first step that Gary, this attorney, kind of mentioned to us was basically doing a feasibility study. That's typically what, during any sort of regionalization project, even if it was to go, forward, KDHE is going to want to see, and assuming public financing type during the USDA rollout, is going to want to see a feasibility study. First of all, just make sure it makes financial sense and, other priority sense, so we're not just trying to force this thing together. It's not good for the entities or for one entity versus another. So they do this thing called a feasibility study or kind of a planning study, and KDHE even funds part of that. I think they give up to maybe $12,000. Stuart will have a little bit more information on this part of it, but to go through it. So it was kind of Andrews and I, kind of feeling at that time. We wanted to bring that back to you guys. Is that this will really allow us to, first of all, fully explore that feasibility study. Kind of what we're going to do is just kind of a phase one, I would say, feasibility study. There's some big items out there, for example, the softening issue, that could really trip this thing up. They might be solvable, but we don't need to do a full-fledged 6 to 12 month feasibility study and spend, $50,000, $75,000 if that one thing just isn't going to work, or there's a pricing issue, or anything that may not let it work. So there's some fairly significant priorities, many of them are ours, but there's also priorities of the water districts that, that we felt that, the combination of Schwab Eaton and EVH, which is District 2's engineer, can kind of team up on and do kind of this phase one or preliminary feasibility study to see if there's even anything there. And kind of like I mentioned in my write-up, that's really going to help us, kind of like we talked a meeting or two ago, is kind of our first step is in fleshing out that option of building the plant here with the pipeline, is really drilling down on that cost estimate. Really getting it fine-toothed and having Stuart and his team really look into that to see, hey, what exactly it is. We're kind of playing with this $14 to $15 million number. Maybe it's really a $11 or $12 million number. Like, we really need to know that, because that makes a big difference in our decision making. So this feasibility study is going to require that. It's going to require us to drill down into that, and also probably drill down into some either updated or new plant technologies that's more the traditional model, like what Rural Water 2 already has, and really allow us to compare it to that too, because we probably should make sure that we're kind of vetting several options with this. So I guess, Stuart, maybe I'll let you talk a little bit more about the study and kind of why we're kind of maybe killing two birds with one stone here, and so it's kind of actually a pretty good opportunity.
Okay. Well, Jason, you did a really good job of kind of setting the stage here. Like Jason said, KDHE does offer a planning grant for a regional type of water treatment facility. We call it a public wholesale water supply district typically. And they will fund, KDHE will fund $12,500 with that same match being on the local side. Both of the rural water districts at the meeting last week agreed to participate 1/3 of the cost of the local effort side. So then the final decision on whether we move this thing forward would rest with you folks, relative to, does the city want to participate in this? In my opinion, the study that we are talking about would be a wise idea, because number one, the regionalization concept will be required. It's a box on a checklist of things that is looked at in any public financing package that we might apply for. So we've definitely got to explore whether regionalization is a real possibility if we choose, or if we desire to pursue public financing. So that would be the first thing. And the second thing is, we don't have a fine-tuned cost estimate of the water treatment plant concept that has been developed to date. We have kind of a cost range. And like Jason said, I think it is important that we fine-tune that and then correlate that back to a cost of water per 1,000 gallons and compare that to the cost of water using a more traditional treatment methodology like Metro Rural Water District number 2 uses. And those are a couple of things that Don Heller with EVH and I have discussed, and And those are going to be the core issues associated with the study. The other thing that will be in the study is the possibility of adding softening to a more traditional plant like what Mitchell Rural Water District Number 2 has, but only sending the softened water to the city of Beloit. And I think there are some complications associated with that that are going to render that option not terribly feasible. That's just my opinion. But that is something that will be investigated as part of the study as well. Mitchell Rural Water District Number 2 continues to say that their primary focus is to take the infrastructure at the existing plant and expand on it in order to keep the cost of water down. So I guess in my opinion, the core issues at play here, the city has made some of their key issues known to this group, this public wholesale water supply district group, those being softening, latest technology, that sort of thing. I think on the other side of the fence, the rural water districts are going to look at cost of water as probably the most important issue based on the discussion that we had. So those are really the key components that we will be working to sort out as part of this study. In my opinion, the study doesn't really slow us down any because we requested of everybody that was in the room if an abbreviated, shortened, simplified, concise type of study would be acceptable. And everybody in concept agreed to that. Like Jason said, kind of a phase 1, phase 2 approach. Phase 1 would be the documents that identify the costs, the cost of water, and a couple of key options that are being talked about. And after with the completion of the phase 1 study, we either come together, certain entities may have to give and take a little bit, but we either come together or we draw a line in the sand and say, our desires are enough different that we need to go our separate ways. And if that happens, we've accomplished that in about the same timeline as providing the city an updated cost estimate that we've been talking about for a while. And we've also checked that box that'll be on a lot of the public funding mechanisms. Have you investigated regionalization? Yes, we have. Why does it not work for us? Well, here are the reasons. So, do you have any questions for Jason or I relative to what was discussed at the meeting?
One thing they did mention is that they're, I think, $1.29,
Yeah.
and we're at 193, I think, approximately. Is that right? 193 is us?
So that's how three.
So their current price is extremely, extremely low. But also you have to look at their main use is agricultural, our main use is residential. That's a tremendously different animal as far as who you're serving. So that's another reason when softening came up and the RO process came up, most farmers don't care if the water's a little bit hard, is basically what came out of that discussion. They don't want anything really to do with that because they can't sell $1.50, $1.90, whatever. At least that was their concern to their constituents when they're using large amounts of water.
Right. And without a doubt, if the membrane type technology like reverse osmosis is the preferred direction of the project, the cost of water will definitely be going up relative to what they are used to. It'll be substantial for them.
Who once again is doing the study?
Well, it'll be a joint effort between us and EVH. They're a consultant generally in the southern part of Kansas, but they're Mitchell Rural Water District Number 2's consultant. And then we will be sub-consulting with John Bromer to get his expertise in some of the pieces of this. The reason it is being kind of framed this way with the KDHE has already said that they will offer the planning grant. So somebody has to be the entity that that is contracted with KDHE for the planning grant. Since the city has administrative staff, it would make sense for the city to serve as the recipient of that planning grant. And then city would in turn have some sort of interlocal agreement with each of the 2 rural water districts. And since we serve as the city's engineer on lots of engineering related issues, we would serve as the prime for the planning grant, and then we'll contract with EDH and John Burmer as necessary.
Another reason too, Ken, was just, you know, we don't have to get started with somebody else. They both know, they already have the data, they just grab it, start plugging, so yeah, it was kind of.
We also, sorry.
Oh, all I was gonna say is the goal is to hit the ground running on this and get it knocked out in the next 2 or 3 months.
We also did bring up our concern about the balance of the board, how that would be structured. They were accepting of the idea of a board that is based on usage or however else, so a proportional board structure, if that's